So thank you again for joining. Today's webinar is Tips for Tackling Tough Times. My name is Dr. Shirley Davis, and I am really honored and I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you and just have a heartfelt conversation just about what we're dealing with, what's going on in our world. I mean, literally the global world place. And just to talk to you a little bit about some of the tips and strategies that I've been using and that I know professionals have advised, and I just want to encourage people. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Shirley Davis, and I actually have a extended history, and not only in the business world. I have been a business executive, a leader. I've been a frontline supervisor. I've been at every level in the organization, all the way up to now being a CEO. But I left corporate America after 30 years as a worker and left as a senior executive. I've worked in the human resources field for a little over 30 years. I have worked in every area of HR, both as a generalist and strategist, as well as heading up many of the HR functions. I've been a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for nearly 15, 20 years of my 30 years in HR. And I've worked at Fortune 10, Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies most all of my career. My last job for 8 years was at the Society for Human Resource Management. And there I was the head of diversity and inclusion. I was the global head of our D&I initiative and helping SHRM to really produce the resources, the thought leadership, all of the development, as well as running the annual diversity and inclusion conference for SHRM. I am now my own business owner, and I am head of the SDS Global Enterprises firm. It stands for Strategic Development Solutions, and we are a firm that really helps organizations and leaders around the world build high-performing and inclusive workplaces. I have also been working as a coach. I'm a certified leadership coach. I also have written several books, Reinvent Yourself, Strategies for Achieving Success in Every Area of Your Life. I've also written Deceit, How to Get Invited to the Table When You're Overperforming and Undervalued. And I'm also writing another book called Living on the Other Side of Imagination. I do coach leaders from all around the world. I work with organizational leaders on how to transform their cultures, how to build, those inclusive cultures of belonging, high performance, high engagement, and just world-class winning cultures. So that's a lot of the work that I do. But I thought what I would do when I decided to do this webinar was to come on and really talk to you as a coach, as a colleague, as a friend, and as a woman of faith, and just provide some inspiration, provide some empowerment to be able to talk through some of this difficulty, this disruption, this dis-ease, this discomfort. This thing has come upon us so hard, so fast, and so furious. So I wanted to be able to do that today. Those of you who are just coming on, if you don't mind, if you will take off your videos, you can disable that. I see that many of you are already on mute, so I so appreciate that as well. And it looks like everyone can see me as well. Throughout today's webinar, what I would ask is, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat room. I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to ask you to chat it in the chat room as well. So this is when you want to be brief and use like the Twitter character limit, right, of no more than 140, 240 characters. I want to be able to read your comments and be able to share that with everyone else as well. Let me also open up with a thank you, a sincere and heartfelt thank you to all of our first responders, all of our medical professionals, scientists, lab workers, our teachers, and all of the volunteers, as well as all of the facilities and the businesses who have stepped up and who have stepped in and who are giving up your time, risking your lives. You're on the front lines to help us respond to this global pandemic and to this national emergency. And so I just want to not only give you our sincerest appreciation, but I want to give you a shout out and an applause. So for those of you, wherever you are, let's applaud everyone and thank them for all of the work and the sacrifices that they're making to help make our world safer and make our world a better place. I also want to express my sincerest condolences to families and to any of you who have friends or colleagues that have lost their lives as a result of this coronavirus. I know that it is It's the numbers are still rising every day. They're doubling in some places around the country and around the world. But I want to at least acknowledge the thousands of those who have lost their lives during this pandemic. And to those of you who are still fighting the virus, who might be quarantined right now, who might be dealing with the effects and the impact of the health challenges that it brings, we stand with you. We are praying for you. We're pulling for you, and we say stand strong. Also, I just want to give two disclaimers, if I can, two disclaimers. One is, many of you know that I'm a woman of faith, unapologetically. That's a part of my diversity, and that's a part of my identity that is a very personal and significant part of who I am. So for the last few minutes of this session, I'm going to lead us in a global prayer for our nation, a global prayer for those that are infected, those that are affected. I'm going to be praying for our first responders, for our leaders, and for each of you. And if you prefer to leave the session for those last few minutes, I'll announce it and let you know I'm about to say a prayer. I want to respect the fact that we all have, different religious beliefs and different religions. And so if you're not comfortable staying on for the time of prayer, I totally understand that. I just want to be one of those people that when people say, pray for our families, pray for our nation, that we're doing that. And it's not just a passing jargon or slang. I literally am praying for you. I'm praying for our nation. I'm praying for our country. I'm praying for our leaders. I'm praying for every person that's been affected by this. The second disclaimer is that I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a licensed therapist or a scientist. And so I know that there's a lot of medical challenges and medical needs that are out there. And if you are dealing with any of those, please allow nothing that I shared today to be meant to override any of those, the instructions and the guidance that you get from your healthcare professionals or from any other licensed, licensed therapist or any of those. I just want to be able to share with you some strategies and some tips. I'm going to offer, hope. I'm here to offer inspiration, offer motivation, and simply just here today to provide my perspectives, to give some tips and to share some strategies for tackling this trouble, these tests, this turmoil, and this specifically this pandemic. But I've been through trouble in my life, and I think many of us can probably attest that we've struggled in our past. We've had to deal with trouble. We had to deal with loss. We've had to deal with hurt, devastation, uncertainty, financial loss, being broke, being broken, or, dealing with near-death experiences. I've been through all of those things. And so for me, I know people feel a sense of hopelessness when you go through those things. I felt those things in my own life. I felt levels of stress and panic and pandemonium and, lack of concentration and frustration and anger and, and fear. So all of those are very, very real emotions and moods that come along with experiencing something like what we're dealing with right now. And if you're not careful, it can truly paralyze you. And I know how it can feel, feeling like the bottom has fallen out. And I know how it feels to, feel like giving up. So today, I just want you to know I've lived through it, I've survived through it, and I know that you can thrive through it because I'm thriving as well. After after those things that I've dealt with, I'm thriving through it. So I've got a little bit of experience under my belt to be able to know how to deal with this. I've seen this before. I've seen what we're going through, and I've learned how, through all of those things, to reinvent myself. I've learned how to stand up under it. I've learned how to build myself up in my own faith. And I've learned that in every time, in every turn, in every way in my life, that I can recover and I can truly reinvent myself and be better as a result of it. So, I wrote the book about it. Many of you, and I'm not going to be selling books today, but I do want you to know that I wrote this book here called Reinvent Yourself, Strategies for Achieving Success in Every Area of Your Life. And it helped me. So the reason why I was able to write it was because I lived through it. And I know that so many other people are either going through it or just, about to come into it and deal with it. So I wanted to help you there. I'm not going to sell books today. I'm not selling a course. I'm not going to sell a program. I'm not selling coaching or anything. I am here to gift you with my time, and I'm here to gift you, more importantly, with hope. So again, what I want you to understand through all of this is that this is not the time for giving up. It's the time for holding on, and it's not the time for giving in. This is the time for being strong. Our current reality, the real reality reality here, and I'm going to call it out because I think important. Anytime that you're in a battle, you're in a war, you're in trouble, you've got to acknowledge where you are. You got to be able to call those things out, and you got to be real. You got to be, confrontive about it, and yet you want to acknowledge it where you are and then move past it. So let me just talk about the current state, because for me, before I offer my clients any solutions or any strategies, the first thing that I have them do in my consulting firm is that I always have them look at their current state so that they know where they're starting. They know what their reality is, and it helps them to be able to deal with it as they name it, and then be able to move towards solutions and to move towards outcomes. And that's what I want us to do. Let's start first with what we're dealing with. We are living in a season of disruption. And for any of you who've heard me speak, who've heard me do any keynoting or do any training, I have always talked about the fact that we're living in this era of disruption. Well, disruption today looks different than it did 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago. For many of us, we're being disrupted in a different way. Our normal way of life has been disrupted. We're living in a time that's unprecedented, it's unexpected, it's uncontrollable, and yet it's unwelcomed. It's uninvited. We didn't want this pandemic. We don't want to deal with this virus. We don't want to deal with these inconveniences, these things that really attack and disrupt and hijack our peace, our way of life, our time. It just has been disruptive. And so this is unprecedented, it's unexpected, it's uncontrollable, and it's definitely unwelcomed. This coronavirus, COVID-19, is something that we have never experienced before. It's fast, it's furious, and for thousands of people, unfortunately, it's fatal. And the impact has been significant. As of this morning, just in looking at the news, which I'm going to tell you in a few, don't look at so much news. But this morning, we are still looking at it. They always capture and summarize for the day kind of where we are. And I like that they're doing that too, because it's a reality check every day that this thing is serious. And so as of this morning, we have over 400,000 people who have contracted this virus worldwide. Nearly 20,000 of them have died from it. Nearly 60,000 cases are here in the U.S., and nearly 1,000 people have died here in the U.S. The stock market has seen its worst days, even worse than the 2008 crash, the Great Recession that we had in 2008, even worse than 9/11 and the impacts of that. And it's being compared to the worst economic time back in like the early 1900s, when most of us were not even there, right? Even the Great Depression. So for us, this is our worst economic time. Businesses are closing, or they're going out of business. People are losing their jobs. They're losing time at work. They are, schools are closing. Graduations and proms and weddings and funerals have been disrupted. Spring breaks have been canceled. Closures and postponements of conferences and conventions and events and movies and performances have all been postponed. And the NBA playoffs called off. The PGA tournament called off. I know the Tokyo Summer Olympics postponed until next year. All kinds of things. And then most of us are on serious lockdown, or at least many of them are even in quarantines. And so whole states and countries are shutting down, and yet we're still dealing with it. And I understand that we have not yet seen the worst in the U.S. And I'm not a naysayer. I'm not one that looks at the glass half empty, but I am one that loves to understand science. I am one that uses wisdom, and I am one that wants to look at the reality of where we are. So this is our reality. We know that people are in isolation and quarantines. They're at home with their families. They're shut in, and they're dealing with some of the darkest days that they really hadn't experienced or hadn't expected. And so while we see the worst might be coming, we know that again in all of this, we never would have thought that this stuff was going to come to deal with us like it's done, right? Who would have ever thought that we would be fighting in the stores for hand sanitizer and Lysol and disinfectants and toilet paper, things that we kind of take for granted, that now has become a global shortage. Wow. Look, guys, it looks and it feels and it appears bad. But I want you all to know is that we're all feeling it. And I want you to know that it's not easy for a lot of people. And I know that for many, that people are struggling, people are in fear. And I know that this is a really uncomfortable time. And in a matter of, 7 days, even for me, from my own personal story and my own personal impact of this, is that in 10 days, I had literally all of my calendar of March, April, and May wiped out, and all of my income wiped out. But look, the coronavirus is an equal opportunity destroyer. Nobody is exempt from this. Its impact is being felt by everybody. It's affecting every race, every color, every ethnicity, every gender, age, socioeconomic status, every status, class, level, every position. I don't care if you got positions of power, status, and celebrity. It's affecting CEOs. It's affecting pastors, priests. It's affecting Congress people. It's affecting, even I heard this morning that the Prince of Wales has also been tested positive for coronavirus. So it's affecting us all in every way. And even us everyday folk, it's affecting us as well. This virus is no respecter of persons. And social distancing has become a new term and a new way of life. None of us really used that term before. And even the way we greet people, I'm a very affectionate person. I'm a loving person, very much a touchy-feely kind of person. And so handshakes and hugs and touching and any form of touch now has been disrupted. But that's all the bad news. There is good news. First of all, let's make sure we understand that social distancing does not mean social disengagement. So during this time of shut-in, this is an opportunity for us to stay connected, stay engaged, and stay in touch with each other. And I'm so glad that many of you are joining us so that we can stay connected with each other, because we are in this together. I really do need you, and I know that we need each other. So the good news out of all of this is that there's always something to be thankful for. The first thing is, let's think about the reality is that we all woke up this morning and that we're all here. They always say it's better to be seen than to be viewed. And I'm so glad to see some of your faces, see some of your names pop up, and to just know that at least you're here and you're accounted for. I'm seeing people helping their neighbors. I'm seeing them helping and reaching out to their communities and serving, people who are less fortunate. They're helping the children who don't have school meals. And I've seen so many people step up to make sure that they get 2 meals a day like they would in school. I see companies that are stepping up and they're committing to help with this virus. They're donating. I know Amazon's donating $15 million. Starbucks Foundation, $2.5 million. Facebook, $20 million. Apple, $15 million. Lowe's, $25 million. Target, they're giving their staff $2 raises an hour. Even Rihanna is donating $5 million. So I'm thrilled to see so much of what's going on in a very positive light amidst so much darkness and so much fear and so much pandemonium. I'm really glad to see that there's some great things going on. I'm going to ask you in the chat room, if you will, share in the chat room, what are some positive things that your company is doing or that you're seeing happening in your communities, in your local regions? What's happening where people are really reaching out? What are some of the good things that's happening in the midst of all that long laundry list of stuff that's happening? Tell us some of the things that you're seeing happen even in your own areas. I can see in the chat room, so if you will just chat a little bit. I'm going to give you a minute or so and would love to be able to see what are some of the other things that are happening. While you're doing those chats, I want to also just kind of highlight some of the other things too that I'm seeing that's good that's coming out of this right now. Here's some good news. Tax filings have been moved to July 15th, right? So no penalties, no interest, no late fees. That's a positive thing that's coming out of this, that there are at least concerns about, everyday workers and all of us who, especially here in the U.S., that tax filing has been moved to July 15th. And so that's a blessing for many of us. Student loan interest has been frozen. Interest rates are at an all-time low. Banks are being asked to, cease from evictions and cease from foreclosures. And that's a real blessing, right? And just this morning, the U.S. government passed the largest stimulus/rescue package ever in history of over $2 trillion. And for those of you who may not heard, it's good news, right? At least It's good among so much bad. $1,200 has been extended to every person making under $75,000 a year. $2,400 for couples. $500 for every child. It's also extending, 0% interest loans for small businesses. I'm really glad to see that there's opportunities there for at least us to try to at least maintain, some way of life for our finances. Some of the other good things that I'm seeing, you guys are mentioning it in the chat room, is that neighbors are shopping for the elderly. Earlier shopping times for them in different stores. I've seen that the Walmarts, the Targets, and many stores are saying, hey, we're going to allow the seniors to come in at an earlier time so that they can shop without calls and that they can have some time and space amongst each other and not have to deal with the crowds. That's great. We also see, churches giving food to your community. Schools are providing meals for the students and finding ways to do that. Even though school is closed, they're still allowing. Some of them are delivering the food to the kids, which is great. Others are allowing drive-bys where kids can come pick it up. School bus drivers, I'm loving that. They're delivering the meals to the kids at home. Others are being sensitive to the needs of the elderly and those that are underlying health issues. Thank you for sharing. Lots of great stuff. Local Facebook groups are posting great virtual tours and free classes online. Guys, you can take classes now at Cornell, at Harvard, at Stanford. A lot of the Ivy League schools and even some of the other colleges and universities are opening up where you can now have access to free courses online. Take advantage of this opportunity to get more development, to invest in yourself, to invest in your future, to grow new skills, to learn new things, to connect with other people. Loving it. Others are being, I love this one, free courses. We mentioned that one. Also expertise to support people working from their home. My daughter is continuing school lessons via Zoom classes. Great. Utility companies are no longer conducting disconnects for non-pay. And hopefully the robocalls will stop for a while, right? But hopefully some of those robocallers, right, are the ones that are being told stop it, right? So those are some of the positive things that are coming out. When you can't deliver food to the food banks, we're collecting and delivering addresses online to food delivery. So that's great. Great workers like the one, the free price adjustments, free music, free I've been seeing free concerts online. John Legend's been doing free concerts, and I've been seeing so many other entertainers and celebrities coming on and finding creative free ways to allow us to connect, engage, and be able to be entertained and give some hope, lift the spirits up of so many people. Thank you. There's just so many things of things that can be done, and someone left a link in the chat room as well. Thank you so much, Fran, for sharing the link to all of the free Ivy League courses that are now available for people who want to take those and get access to greater levels of development. The homeless people are getting supplies. People are watching out for them. So see, there is a lot of good that's coming out of all of this. And I'm really thrilled, and I'm really excited, and I'm really grateful. I love too how, families are now home together, and I've been seeing a lot of, people showing their pictures on Instagram and on Facebook and all the other social media sites of some of the things that they're doing. One of the largest online house parties took place this weekend, and I think it's still going on. For some of you who might be interested, I love music. Now, I stopped clubbing a long time ago, but I still love good music, especially the oldies but goodies. And I know that, some of the DJs, especially DJ D Nice on Instagram and also on his Facebook page, has been going live and actually created one of the largest online or virtual house parties, or I guess it was house parties, right? Calling it Club Quarantine, hashtag Club Quarantine. And over 160,000 people joined in over the weekend, and I saw it on the CBS Today show yesterday with Gayle King was interviewing D Nice, who's a DJ, and he was like back in the day, he's like from the 80s and the 90s, but he found something really creative and very innovative and something to do to truly bring people together. People have been having fun with it, and celebrities have joined it. People from all over the world have come together. That's the kind of thing that we want to do in this time. So let's talk a little bit about some things that we can do now that we kind of know what the reality is, but we also see some good coming out of this. Let's talk about what are some of the tips and strategies that we can do. The tips that we can do to do four things. I'm going to hit on four areas. And as y'all can see, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. This is a conversation from my couch. I just wanted to invite you into my home to have this intimate conversation and just to share some tips. But I do want to hit four areas, right? I want to talk about things that we can do to really manage our mood, to manage our mindset. How do we maximize these moments that we have, and how do we even manage our money? Because I know that that's certainly being affected and impacted during this time. So one of the things I want you to know, I know that because I don't have a PowerPoint, many of you are like, oh, she's going to say a lot of things and I'm not going to be able to write as fast, and because I do talk fast as well. I got a lot of things I want to share today. But I also have a really nice handout, a great infographic, and it's, oh gosh, it's a couple of pages long, but it looks like this, and it's available for you. So I'm gonna make it available to you free as a tool. It's an infographic tool that you will be able to refer to, and I hope that you'll look at it, use the tips, share it broadly with your teams, share it with your family, share it with your friends, your communities. For those who couldn't join today, we are recording today's webinar so that we can make it available to the world to, again, just shed some light and some strategies for how people can cope, how people can maximize this moment. So let's talk the first one. How do you manage your mood? Your mood is directly tied, and it directly is part of your emotions, right? And we know that we're feeling a lot of different emotions during this time. I mean, that's why we call them mood swings, right? Because they can be temporal, they can be situational, right? Just based on what's happening right now in our lives. So you can have, different kinds of moods. And some of the most common moods that we deal with in times of stress and pressure and times of trouble and tests and disruptions, number one is stress. Right? So many of us are stressed out, and a lot of times that stress comes sometimes self-imposed, but in this case, we all have some justification and a real rationale of why we can feel that level of stress. Stress is not bad. Stress, again, lets you know that something isn't right. Stress is an indicator to you that there's something going on. And you know what? It's an opportunity for you to be able to take control of your mindset and your emotions. But at least you need to know that all of us experience some level of stress. What I want to make sure is that you're managing your moods in such a way that that stress does not paralyze you. Because stress, what we know, can have a lot of other invisible manifestations that show up in your health, your wellness. It can show up in your body in different ways. And so I want you to be careful about managing your stress. Fear is another major mood or emotion that we can have, right? And hopefully these are not moods that you're staying in. I hope you don't find yourself in these moods every single day. I want you to manage that. I'm going to give you some tips. But fear, stress, uncertainty, anxiousness and anxiety, impatience, even anger. Sometimes you can feel that going through these disruptions, and anger that you got to stay in, angry about the fact that we don't have answers yet, angry about sometimes a lot of the miscommunications and the misinformation, angry about having to be confined and out and feeling like you're out of control, outside of your control. And many of us, like me, love to make sure that you're in control of your life or in control of something, right? And so this feels like it's taking something from us that we don't have control over. And then there's also depression, right? These are mood swings that we have. And some, I know for others, these may be things that we're dealing with emotionally, mentally, and developmentally. And so all of these are really important. I'd like for you in the chat room, if you will, just type in the chat room which of these moods that you have been feeling the most during this time. Feel free to add any other additional ones that I didn't list. I listed fear, stress, anxiety, uncertainty, impatience, anger, as well as depression. Tell us, which ones are you feeling? Which ones tend to be the most dominant ones for you that you've been feeling during this time? I'll look to see a few of you in the chat room. So what I'm seeing in the chat room is definitely anxiety for sure. Anxiety, fear for the family. You're feeling that because you're at risk. I'm seeing impatience, again, impatience with your spouses, impatience with your children. feeling, great levels of stress, undue stress, and really stress that's unusual, stress for the outlook for the months in the future, income, looking at the income fluctuations, stress about your 401k, stress about your investments and seeing it go. I'm gonna tell you what you don't do during this time if you want to minimize your stress, and we'll hit on a few of them. I just thought about this one. Don't be looking at your portfolio every day unless you're buying stocks. But be careful. Do not look at your stock portfolio every day, because it will cause you additional stress and anxiety and somewhat depression to see thousands and thousands of dollars being lost if you have it in the stock market at this time. Other things, people are feeling uncertain, just in terms of how long this will go on. And again, I'm listening to the experts. Helpless. Good. That's another good one. Helpless when I'm normally able to physically help someone else. Hard to sleep, right? Hard to concentrate. Anxiety, depression, worry, uncertainty. So for sure, all of us are feeling this. And so it's important for us to recognize that when things like this happen that are totally outside of our control, is that it's okay for us to recognize and to call out and to label what it is that we're feeling, right? A mood is a part of your emotional rhythm. It's triggered by an event, it's triggered by an experience, it's triggered by a situation. That event can also be positive and it can also be negative, right? But it seems like in the situations that we're facing now with this pandemic, is that it tends to have a lot more of a negative trigger. But when you think about all the good things that's happening in our world, as we just listed, the good things that we're seeing in our communities every day, hopefully that can switch our moods, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. The other thing too is that negative moods can also be triggered by, a disagreement. It can be triggered by the people that are around you. Hopefully you're with your families and you guys are loving on each other and you're getting along very well, and you're not fussing and disagreeing and arguing constantly and feeling like you're in a hostile home environment and a hostile work environment when you're working from home. That can be a real impact to your mood as well too. Moods can also be triggered by a breakup. It can be triggered by feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling ill. It can be triggered by body aches and pains, lack of sleep, lack of food, lack of exercise, and it can even be triggered by the weather. Some days when it's rainy and dreary and cloudy outside, it can affect your mood. So I want you to think about, and I want you to be more intentional about understanding your mood. Call it for what it is, because then I want us to think about some things that we can do to move into a different mood, right? Change is not easy. And most people resist or dislike change, right? It's a process. Change is a process that we all go to, and sometimes change is happening to us and it's beyond our control. So change is something that happens to people even if they don't agree with it. And as I said too, this is an unwelcome and an unexpected and an unprecedented attack and it's a war, and it's an invisible enemy, right? And so we're experiencing change in our daily lives. We're experiencing change in our finances. We're experiencing change in our world. And yes, this is something that all of us are going through. But guess what? We all experience change differently. We all internalize it differently, even though it might be the exact same situations. Many of us are facing, having to work from home. Many of us are facing, being isolated. Many of us are facing fear and all these other things, but we all internalize it in different ways, and it shows up different ways. Transition, and even all of that, right? Transition, on the other hand, is internal. Right? Change is something that happens to us even if we weren't expecting it, even if we don't agree with it. Transition is internal. It's what happens in our minds. And as we go through change, we recognize that change can happen very quickly, while transition usually occurs more slowly. That's some of the work that William Bridges wrote in his book. And I'm going to talk a little bit about change, just a little bit on change management. Many of you who work with me. I see some of my clients on. I see some of my my colleagues. I see even some of the people who I've seen in audiences around the country. Some of you follow me on social media, and I appreciate you being here today. So you've heard me talk not only about this era of disruption, but I coach my clients and I consult with my clients on change and how, you know, change is not something we all like, but it's something we all have to deal with, and we got to lean into it even when it's uncomfortable, and we can't stay static and we can't remain complacent. We have to embrace it. And sometimes we got to take change by the horns of the altar, and we've got to then lean into that, and we got to be willing to confront the change in a very, you know, assertive and sometimes even an aggressive way. The process of change and going through transitions is the same, as I said, for everybody. But William Bridges identifies 3 different types of transitions that we go through. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen, and I want to share with you the change curve that William Bridges talks about in his book. Hopefully all of you can see the transitions during change slide that I just put up. If you can, please say yes. Good. So what I want to do is just kind of talk a little bit through this slide. And again, this is in the infographic that we're going to provide, but I at least wanted you to see this. This comes from his book called Managing Transitions. And he wrote this as we talk about change. And I want to just kind of walk you through real quickly about how we all experience 3 different phases and stages of change. When something happens, really paradoxically, it might sound like transition starts with an N, right? And oftentimes it does. The first, you know, transition stage in his model is it starts with when we as individuals or workers or business leaders, we realize that the change is truly happening. And that might have different consequences depending on the person. People at this stage start to experience or establish what they will lose, what's in it for them, how they can limit their losses, what they can do to salvage for the future, what can they do to get out of it. And any kind of organization and in any kind of situation, this is where the concerns come in. And this is where you've got to have, right, you know, it impacts everybody. So you've got to have processes in place. You need to be, you know, connected with your teams. You got to be connected with people that are close to you and your family and your relationships and your network, but it can affect everyone. It affects the team itself. It affects your locations. It affects how you work, when you work, and what kind of work you can get done. Even personally, it's affecting all of us, right? We've had some endings. I've had so many cancellations, or clients say, hey, we're going to have to postpone this into the, you know, late summer or early into next year. So going through these changes and these shifts, this phase can be emotional. It's an emotional roller coaster for a lot of us, right? And this is where we start to feel those feelings of stress and anxiety and confusion and anger and shock. Some of those things we've already talked about, right? Our moods. Those are some of the things that we're already having to deal with. And in this phase, right, you'll feel sometimes a level of sadness and frustration and loneliness. And that, it's obvious. It should be obvious to all of us. And this is the time, too, where leaders and those of us who are in positions of influence and in positions of impact, this is where we can truly step in and provide a level of support and provide the level of, you know, just checking in and provide a level of care and concern and compassion. So there's some things, again, leaders, you can do this so that you ease this transition for your team members and parents. We can do this to ease the transitions for our kids. They got to now be home. Many of them had their, you know, school years have been disrupted, their proms, their senior graduations. This is an ending for many of them, and you can imagine how they might feel. So what we want to do as leaders and those of us who are in positions of influence is clearly explain what's the change. Why is this change happening? Respect and appreciate and understand that people are having different emotions, and they won't get through it at the same time or the same way or at the same level that you do. Clarify the benefits of that change. Clarify exactly what will change in their lives. And I know we don't all know when it's going to go away, but for right now, we got to take it one day at a time and help them to look at then what are some of the things that they can change? What are some of the things that will remain the same? What are some of the things that they can depend on? So help them to work through this. They have to reconcile when they're in that ending and something, for them right now is a change. They've got to be able to reconcile that. That second stage that you see here as well is this is where we move into the neutral zone, and you don't want to stay here too long, because this is where it's about reorienting, and you got to transition, but you don't want people to become complacent. You don't want people to get stagnant. You don't want people to just stay in resistance. And ultimately, we also call this sometimes the pit of despair, because if you're not careful, and as a leader, if you're not helping to move people through this to the other side, they'll go back to the endings. They'll go back to frustration and shock and end up staying there. And you don't want that. You want people to be productive, and you want people to be performing at their best, and you want them to stay positive. So again, the emotions here is where, again, during the stage, a lot of this is, you have an opportunity to start helping them to move towards a more positive outlook. It shows here, in their work. It might show up in the way that they respond. It might show up in their mood and their attitudes as well. But as leaders, you want to try to help get this transition to a place where they feel at least a level of comfort with you, a level of trust with you. They need to hear a voice of reason. They need to hear a voice of leadership. They need to hear a voice of strength. They need to hear a voice of calm. This is the time where you can try to help them move over into the next stage of energy and being positive and learning and feeling engaged and starting to see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. So this is where you can, again, help them to find meaning in the midst of all of this mess. Help them to see the good in the midst of all of this disruption. Show successes. Give them some feedback. Give them some reassurances. Celebrate some of the small things, the milestones, and to help them stay positive. And then move over into what William Bridges then calls new beginnings. And yeah, you might have a new normal, right? I'm not going to say that where we are today, it's a new normal for us today, but it may not be a new normal forever. There are some things that may change. That's a very positive change that could be your new normal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Perhaps you are doing more exercising and better eating and working out, or perhaps not, right? I know this is a time now where people are eating and eating and eating because they're eating emotionally. And sometimes they're eating just because they're home and the food is there. But this is a time too where you really want to move to the side of new beginnings and coming into enthusiasm and excitement and relief and hopefulness, and looking at the glass not only half full, but looking at the glass full and overflowing, that there's possibilities, that there's opportunities at the end of this tunnel. So some other things that you can do, leaders, is to just make sure that you are checking in with your teams. Parents, check in with your kids. Don't just let them stay in their rooms, play a bunch of games all day, and stay on the phones and stay on social media. Check in with them so that they can recommit. So I'm going to come back into the room, but I just wanted to show you a bit about this as we look at how do we think about change, and how do we need to continue to move through this change, because all of us are going through it. I want to show you the book I was talking about this is where I got that from, and it's called Transitions. And it's about, again, how do we help make sense of life's changes and make sense of life's transitions, and how do we cope with that? So that's a great resource for you. Again, I'm not selling it. It's a book that helped me get through a lot of the changes in my life, the things that I had to go through, the things that were disruptions for me. It helped me to get a bit of a mindset. Also, too, let's talk about a couple of other things that you can do to just take control of your mood. As you saw me acknowledge your mood, right? It's important for you to be able to acknowledge your mood and admit it, name it, label it. This is all about being authentic and real about you. Right? So no need for you to lie to yourself. If you're feeling it, you're feeling it. And this is really all about taking control of your emotions and being aware of any of the negative thought patterns, and being aware of some of the negative thinking, the negative ways that you process, the negative effects that it has. Let me encourage you to do a couple of other things that you can do to manage your mood. Is I encourage you to journal, write some things down, write down how you're feeling, write your thoughts, write down your actions, write down, some of your behaviors, your reactions to some of the things that you're feeling. I always say life is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. But sometimes for some people, journaling is very cathartic. So I encourage you to do that. Also, list some of the things that you're grateful for. Look at the positive light, right? Look at those things that you can really be grateful for, the things that are really good in your life, right? That you do have children, you're all together, that you have a job still, that you're still at least getting a paycheck, that you're having time maybe to rest a little bit more, you're having time to do some of the other things. Another thing you can do is talk to people that you trust. Talk to people who have a positive attitude, and that's really important. You do not want to be around a bunch of negative energy. You don't want to be around people who drain and zap your positive energy. You want to be around people who really have light, right? People who will speak wisdom to you, people who will give you guidance. Let me read a couple of the comments here in here as well too. Some of the other things that I'm seeing you guys are listing here. Some of the other things. I want you to also list some of the things that you're doing, things that you can do to manage your mood. Let me give you a couple of other examples. In addition to talking to people who you trust, who have a positive attitude, and that can be people with wisdom and insight and expertise and guidance who've been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. That could be, people who are like your pastor, your priest, or spiritual leader. It could be people who like your parents or someone that you really trust, who's going to speak, power into your situation. This is a time too where prayer is really powerful. Prayer is a tool to seek hope. It's a tool where you can seek peace and strength and guidance during these difficult times. Now, I told you guys I'm a woman of faith, and I'm sprinkling a little bit of my faith out through all of this because I'm not apologetic about that, and it's getting me through. My faith is really helping me. But what are some of the other things that you're doing? So for me, I know that there is an answer for every situation for me if I read scripture. The one scripture I've been reading for many of you who may be interested is Psalm 91. It's helping me to get through it. If you don't, if that one isn't one for you, another one that you can read is the 23rd Psalm. Yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. It feels like it, right? And people are really dealing with death, and you're in your homes now and you're safe because you're not trying to be exposed to something that can literally kill you, right? So we're going through this valley of the shadow of death, but I will fear no evil because I know that I have a strong power that is with me, whatever it is that gets you through. So again, Psalm 91, Psalm 23, very, very helpful, very, very powerful. You have to dwell in a secret place. Some of you are in your home. Find a place where you can dwell in a secret, quiet, calming place where you can hear yourself think, where you can hear your father or hear your mother's words of wisdom, or where you can hear from God, because I'm telling you, I've been hearing greater from God, taking my morning walks. I've been, hearing just calmness and reminding me of the things that I learned growing up from my parents about how to deal with trouble, because trouble don't last always. And they always say too that tough times don't last always, but tough people do. A few more things on how to manage your mood. Talk to your general practitioner. Some of your companies have employee assistance programs, or, I'm big on use your therapist if you need to do that as well too. But it's important this time that you don't isolate yourself, insulate yourself, and that you don't feel like you don't have people to talk to. Please go to social media if you just have to talk, if you got to vent. But I say go to the ones you trust, because social media has got a lot of people who are faking the funk, a lot of people who are, they putting up stuff that's really not true. But I want you to at least have people that you can reach out to and talk. I want you to also assess all the aspects of your life cycle. This is a time that if you want to change your mood, change your sleep patterns, change your eating habits, address some things that you can improve. That'll help you change your mood. Also, can you get more exercise? Are there other things? Exercise helps you to clear your head. It helps you with your cardio, but it also is a great outlet of negative energy. So that's another thing to do too. Address unhealthy habits that you might have. This will be a time too to do that, because that can also help to shift your mood. Manage what you listen to. Manage who you're listening to. Manage how you absorb, how much you absorb, and how you are internalizing it. Watch what you allow other people to speak into your life, or to speak over you, or to speak around you. Because oftentimes, again, what you hear, oftentimes you can internalize it. So this is the time where you have to protect your ear gates and you have to protect your heart. What are you allowing to be heard and to be seen? Others, what you're saying that you're doing, you're walking, you're listening to meditation podcasts and to music. You return to walking as a stress reliever. Some say I've been praying. Some says I've been playing music, going for walks. I've been running. I've been connecting with old friends and colleagues on LinkedIn. I've been lending support to others. Again, thanks for pointing out that it's important to surround yourself with a positive attitude. Again, here's other ones. Others say I'm enjoying just talking to my young adult daughter who came home to shelter with us. It's been great to share with her on a level that we haven't had in a long time. That's what's happening. Is if you're really maximizing this mood and your time, this is often a time for you to reconnect with people. I'm going to hit on that too when I talk about maximizing the moment. You can also, as I said, minimize the bad news. I know that every day there's something going on, and I try to stay connected because I try to stay informed. But what I'm saying is if you have to listen to like the first hour of the news every morning or maybe an hour later on, try not to inculcate yourself with so much news, because y'all know what bleeds is what reads. That's what, I mean, the news is not always going to be positive stories. Now, I'm really, really thankful when I do see them sharing great stories and wonderful people helping out in our community, stepping in. I love the good news and the hero stories, but I see too much of the negative stuff. So minimize how much you're listening. And again, practice mindfulness, right? That's an important one too. Mindfulness is about getting into a quiet place. I do, for me here in my home, I have a quiet place. Is a quite frankly, you know what? Every room in my house is a quiet place. I happen to live alone. My daughter is older now. She's out on her own. I got two beautiful doggies, two ones that I call my four-legged girls. And some of y'all might have seen them on, but they bring joy to my life. I can talk to them all day long. I don't have to argue. They don't talk back. They don't resist. They just love on me, and I love that. But every room in my house is a quiet place. This is my sanctuary. This is a place of peace. It's a place where I retreat. It's a place when I come home, I'm coming home to my staycation. And if you don't have a house of peace, I invite you to create that. And if you can't create it in your entire home, at least create it in one room in your house where you can go to your place of calm. Some people may call it a war room. I have a prayer room. I have my quiet time. I have my backyard oasis where I can just go out and sit and look at the backwoods. There's nothing behind me but great greenery and trees and flowers. Nobody's behind me. So I just love that. Whatever it takes for you to shift your mood and practice mindfulness. And as I said, for me, I pray. Some of you may take walks. Some of you may just talk to friends. Whatever it takes to calm you and to keep you calm. That's very important. I love that. Some says I've been doing GG time with my 4-year-old twin grandsons and reading to them and playing games, and that's awesome. Second thing I want to hit on, again, we're moving, it's already 3 o'clock, and I want to, again, get a few more things in. Things that you can do to manage your mindset and to manage your attitude. Take control first of your mind, just like you take control of your mood and your emotions. Life, as I said, is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. You can always control, you can't always, let me say it differently. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. You can control your reactions. You can't always control it when it happens, but you can control what you do. That's very important. And this is a time too where you might be wanting to reconsider some things. You might want to reinvent yourself. This is a time to do that. This is a time to reflect and refuel and renew and get refreshed and reprioritize some goals, reprioritize some dreams, some visions that you've had, reprioritize some relationship, reprioritize some people, right? This may be a time too, I've seen some people cutting off other people during this time too, because again, this is the time you want to have a lot of negativity around you at all. This disruption has not come to stay. It has come to pass. And I can't wait to see it pass by. But in the meantime and in between time, you need to be able to manage your mindset and manage your attitude. This is where you want to look at things that you can learn. Consider things that maybe you've been wanting to do that you haven't done yet. This might be a time for you to just, talk about, some of your visions and your purpose and just reconnect with yourself. Right? This is not a time where you want to try to hold on to possessions, but hold on to those things that are most precious, like your people, your family, your loved ones, and people that are in your life. What's your pivot plan? All of us need to have a pivot plan. One of the things too, and you'll see this in the handout, in the infographic that we're making available to you. I'm going to give you directions on how to get that. But one of the things that you can do is to pivot. And it's actually pivot stands for, and I love this, is what Eric Rice shares this. He's the author of the Lean Startup. But one of the things he talks about is how important it is to have a pivot plan. And the pivot plan really is, do you have a positive outlook and a positive attitude? Take inventory. That's the I. Take inventory of your current skills, your strengths. What is your superpower, right? The V is to visualize what's possible. Visualize the opportunities. Visualize the things on the other side that's greater. Visualize the things that you can be grateful for. Visualize the things that you are looking forward to. Visualize that. The O is that you want to outline what's needed. Have a plan. Lay out and be able to identify your plan of attack, your strategies, your goals. Put them in place into a plan. And then the T is to transform the story, right? This is not the way your story ends. This is just one chapter in our story, and that has everything to do with how we're going to respond and what we do right now in this moment. So that brings me to the next point is, yes, we need to think about our mindsets, is whether or not we have a fixed mindset or do we have a growth mindset. Many of you may be familiar with Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck wrote this great book called Mindset, right? And again, another great resource for you. I've taken the classes, I've been through some of the training, and I've read the book, obviously, right? But it's about a growth mindset, and it's all about the new psychology of success. Let me just give you a little bit of a sense of, again, the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, because I think that's, again, very important. So think about this when you're looking at the growth mindset. Part of it is thinking about it in the sense of what Carol Dweck calls, when she wrote this, she looks at an inquiry into the power of our beliefs, the power of our senses, and even the way that we simulate, internalize, and process information and process the way that we see change happening, right? So even with change happening in the simplest forms, it's about how can we make sure that we're responding in a certain way, nearly on every aspect of our life. So one of the most basic beliefs that we can carry about ourselves that Dweck says in this book is found in her research, and it has to do with how we view or how we inhabit what we consider to be our personality. And at the same time, it's called a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. So I want you to answer the question in the chat room as I describe it. A fixed mindset is one where it assumes that things are static. Things are always going to be this way. Things are not going to change. They're not going to get any better. And that I'm stuck with this, right? I'm complacent. And you kind of get rigid about it. And you look at the story with the glass half empty. That's a fixed mindset. And that's the same kind of people that always say, well, we've always done it this way. That's the same kind of people that always say, well, you know what, this is the best way. There's no other way, my way or the highway. There is another way to see it, and that's called the growth mindset. The growth mindset thrives on challenge, and it thrives to see failure as an opportunity, failure as a possibility. It looks at this change and this transition as a springboard to grow, as a springboard to stretch, and as a springboard to move into new possibilities, right? Growth mindset looks at the opportunities in every situation as a benefit and as an opportunity to win versus to lose. So in the chat room, which one, if you're honest, during this season and during this time, which one would you say you have right now? Growth mindset or a fixed mindset? In the chat room, let's see what we got. We got growth mindset. Thank you, I appreciate it. Someone says, I so appreciate this wonderful hour. Thank you. This has been, again, this is very encouraging. Good, I'm glad to hear that. All right, we got a couple growth mindsets. Who would be honest enough to say that they got a fixed mindset? A fixed mindset. Good. So a couple of you are coming in. Some said definitely growth. Honestly, through this past week, it's been a fixed mindset. Thank you for sharing that. Growth mindset, being stretched to move to the next level. But I'm moving into that. I'm growing into my growth mindset. And you can certainly do that as well. Look, I'm going to hit on a couple of other things because I want to get through as much of this as I can. So what's important too is, again, try to move towards looking at this with the glass not half empty, not even half full. Look at this as the glass full and overflowing, and that through all of this, I'm going to come out of this on the other side. Look, what's more contagious than Corona? What's more contagious than COVID-19? Through all of this, we've got to look that there is something better in all of this, and that is that we have to be able to maximize our moment. During this time, we really want to maximize our moment. This is the time too where we want to walk in and live in and act in an abundance of generosity. We want to be able to serve others. We want to be able to give others. That's what's more contagious, is abundant generosity and love and kindness and acceptance and understanding and patience and empathy. And let me tell you, leaders, those of you who are leaders here, the number one skill that we need right now through this transition, through this disruption, through this challenge, we need empathy. Leaders, I need you to exercise empathy. I'm not talking about calling your people all the time just to see how much work they're getting done. I need empathy is that you're checking on them with care and concern and compassion. You're listening to them. You're trying to understand what they're going through from their point of view. You're asking questions to understand, right? This is not about, just only getting results, but it's checking in and it's demonstrating to them a level of concern and nurturing them and fostering the relationship. Empathy, I can't say enough about that. That's a whole nother course that I do, a whole nother, course on change that when we talk about change, empathy is also one of the things that leaders need to do. A couple of other things too. Again, this is when we talk about looking at this from a abundance perspective, or looking at it from abundant generosity and looking at it from a growth mindset, recognizing too that this kind of thing, right, is more transformative than it is transmitted. And we're shut in because we don't want to expose ourselves to the wrong thing. But we also have the greatest opportunity while we're here in this situation to also expose ourselves to others during this difficult time to things that are positive, to things like generosity, to things like love and kindness and understanding, and even being, willing to help people that we don't even know, do things for strangers that we've never met before. Those are some of the things that we can do. All right, so then the other thing, let's go into, as I talked about, the third one is, we've talked about how do you manage your mood. We talked about how do you make sure that you manage the mindset. And now I want to talk a bit about how do we maximize the moment, right? That's an important time for us to think about maximizing the moments. And then the last one I want to hit on is what are some tips for managing our money? So a couple of things. What are you doing now? What are you doing to maximize the moment? I know we've already talked about how you're changing your mood. What are you doing to manage your mood? We talked about what are some of the things you're doing to manage your mindset, but also maximizing the moment. Let me share with you a couple of things that you can do. I'm also, taking on some overdue home projects while I'm home. I am, working on getting some much needed rest in my bed. I am reconnecting with family and checking in, with friends and calling and talking on the telephone. Now, a lot of times we text all the time and we're all on Facebook and social media and that kind of thing, but I have literally been taking the time and being more intentional about just picking up the phone and just checking in with family and friends and colleagues and coworkers and clients and just seeing how they're doing. I've, been hanging out with my daughter, spending quality time with her. She lives in Orlando. I'm in Tampa. It's about an hour and 15-minute drive. So being able to do stuff like that. I mentioned my four-legged daughters, my puppies that I hang out with, buying, looking online and buying stocks that are at an all-time low. I'm also, spending quality time with myself, getting reconnected with me, and I'm looking and revisiting my goals, the things that I've set out for the new year. I don't set New Year's resolutions. I have a life plan, and every year I set goals towards that plan. So I'm revisiting some of those. I'm bike riding. Now here in Tampa, it's 85, 86 degrees. It's hot. So I have an opportunity to get out and enjoy nature and take walks and ride my bike and that kind of thing. You may not be in a position to do that, but you can still, find some creative ways to get out and enjoy, right? You put on a jacket and just walk your neighborhood. You're practicing social distancing. Everybody is doing that. I'm also listening to some motivational podcasts and videos, and I'm tuning in on YouTube and watching some great stuff there. I'm watching movies that I've missed and catching up on some series. I'm a HGTV junkie. I love Hallmark movies, stuff that's positive, things, where ain't nobody getting killed, ain't nobody getting, going to jail, nobody's, cheating on their spouse and all of that. So for me, I'm doing some of those kinds of things. So at the end of the day, guys, I'm not panicked, I'm at peace, I'm not distressed or discouraged, I'm really encouraged. And I just want you to think about the same thing. Journal some of your feelings, journal some of your thoughts, journal, some of the things that you're doing that for you, could be therapeutic. Those are important things to do as you maximize the moment. So again, thinking about ways that you can look at this as I'm preparing myself for what's my next chapter. This is a chapter nobody will be remiss, or no one will be left out in having this chapter in their book. So this is going to be a chapter we'll all be able to talk about. So again, if you will, just talk about some things that you're doing to maximize the moment. The other things you can do, I was talking to a therapist the other day, and she's a social psychologist. She said, other things she encourages some of her clients to do: try new recipes, do that together at home, clean out your closets, donate, some things to people who may need those, play games, Monopoly, chess, play checkers, puzzles, Jeopardy. What's the name of that game where you got to call out the specific things and you have to it's Pictionary, right? You have to try to guess some of that stuff. Those are things that you can do as well. Watch movies together, do chores around the house together, meditate, pray together, start a garden, plant some flowers, do some comedy shows and talent shows and entertain each other. Just be productive, be creative, and be flexible. So those are some of the things you want to do. This last thing I want to hit on is, what are some of the things that we can do to manage our money? I know that in this time too, it's really hard because we've got a lot of things going on, and possibly we're losing money, right? I know we're losing it for those of you who may have lost gigs, those of you who may have lost your job, some of you may have had your time cut back, but there are things that we can do in the midst of all of this to truly manage our money. And so I want you in the chat room, I'm gonna give you just a minute. What are some of the things that you can do? I heard someone says in the chat room too, Dr. Davis, can you share some tips on digitizing training materials and offering them online? That's actually, I think that would be more appropriate at another time, but let me just quickly share that. Sharing some tips on digitizing training materials. I've been doing quite a bit of that over the last couple of years because I know that people learn differently anyway. But some of the things I think is important is you can either do what I'm doing today. You can literally do a webinar, record it, make it available. Take all your training materials and just start to get in front of your computer and do training. Or if you have someone who can come, into your home, or if you can go somewhere where you're social distancing and work that, you can do that into a studio. I have a production studio that I use, but I do a lot of my stuff in a green screen. So I have a green screen behind me, and then you can put your virtual backgrounds up there. I also have had a lot of my speeches in the past. I've had them recorded, and I'm now going into cut them into little snippets or episodes, so to speak, video vignettes that people can watch. So those are just some examples, but take a lot of your training and start to look for ways that you can make it into micro learning. People aren't going to watch it all at one time, but you can put it in little 5 to 6 minute chunks or 5 to 7 minute chunks. So that's all I'll say about that, because that's probably a whole nother webinar to do. Just like, I can do a whole nother webinar on how to manage your mindset and your moods as well too, and on change management. But let me hit on some things, and here's some of the things that you guys are doing too. I want to hit on the one about money. What are you guys doing right now to manage your money, to make sure too that you don't, again, just making sure that you don't lose as much, but if you do, how are you at least planning to recover? Those are going to be very important things to think about. So I'm looking into the chat room. I want to hear some of those. Just give you just a minute, some of the things that you're doing. So my family and I have gone on Jackbox.tv, and we played games together. That's really good. I know that some people are doing that. Some have even started games that they've been playing together, even online. I think that's important. Good. Some other things that you're doing. Spending more time with my kids, again, with more friends. So I'm seeing some of those from before. Some people are saying they're going on to LinkedIn Learning and taking courses. And make sure if you do that, I've got a couple of courses on there as well. a great pitch. Take LinkedIn Learning Inclusive Leadership. I have one on leadership foundations. Take those. I've got another one coming out called Developing Accountability as a Leader. It says some others. What are you guys doing to manage your money? I'm looking to invest in stocks, stock options. Good. I have a financial product that won't go lower than what I've invested, so that's good too. Good. I appreciate that. Let me give you a couple of tips too, things that you can do again to maximize your money. Now, you probably have heard me mention earlier that now they got the new stimulus sort of rescue package. So a couple of things that I've been doing. Now remember, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a CPA. So I'm giving you tips and strategies that work for me, or things that I know that are best practices. But I would encourage you to consult your accountant advisor. Don't go out and buy nothing that I told you to buy. I'm talking about me. Right? So even though, again, tax filing, it's been moved to July 15th, but if you are owed money back, you still want to go ahead and file now so that you can have that money for immediate use. If you know you're going to owe, just a little bit of advice, and I think your tax advisor would agree with me, don't file until July 15th, because if you're going to owe money, you don't want to have to deal with it for right now. Focus on the things that are coming in your way. Again, some other things that you can do with managing your money. What I've done is a few other things. I've been looking at loans, small business loans. You can do those. Those are available now at 0% interest. So certainly you want to take advantage of some of those. Some of the other things that you can do is check your credit cards. Check with them to see if there are some, call them and find out if your credit card company will be willing to forego or freeze right now your payments, freeze interest rates, and freeze any fees and penalties for late payments. So call them, make connections with them. They know, and they've been told, and they have been strongly urged that they should at least try to be lenient and really concerned, practicing compassion and empathy at this time. So see if they'll do that. I went online the other day, and I went to my mortgage company to refinance my house, right? Get a lower rate. I've also looked at equity line of credit if I need to get equity out of my home. If you guys have homes, that's another way to look at getting some immediate cash to carry you over. Cut out unnecessary and optional expenses, right? So looking at your fixed expenses and saying, okay, these are things I know I gotta do. Gotta pay my rent, I gotta get food, But you also want to cut out some of those variable or optional or unnecessary expenses, like hair, nails, membership, subscriptions, massages, going to buy clothes, and all those kinds of things. Those are variable, optional things that you don't have to have right now. This is a time now where you've got to be a little bit more frugal, and you've got to certainly be more intentional about your spending. The other one is you can file for unemployment for those of you who may have lost your jobs. Those of us who are business owners, for us, we have to file for small business loans if we need that. For those of us who are also small businesses, we can also, if you have a PayPal account, you can also try to get a loan from your PayPal account, right? They will give you instant loans, $5,000, $10,000, and the way it's paid back is every time you use the PayPal account for transactions, it pays back your loan. So that's one. Another thing that I've done is I've gone to look at my life insurance policies. For those of you who may have life insurance, there may be a cash value that you can pull out. I did that some years ago. I have a life insurance, and I've had it on my daughter since she was in Pampers. Now she's older, but when she went off to college, that was one of the things that I did, was pull out some money, cash value money, to be able to help pay for her college expenses. So those are some things that you can do. The other thing that you can do is call, for those of you who have lease agreements or you're in rentals, you can call your agencies and see if they would be willing to, again, be a little bit lenient. If not to cut it on some of your payment, maybe on half of your payment. So those are some things to do. I already mentioned about refinancing your home and getting some of these rock bottom low interest rates. That's great. But also you can consider what your skills and your talents are, right? What are some of the other things that you can do in a very creative way that you can convert to immediate income? Are there some things that you can do in web design? Maybe you're a seamstress, you can start sewing or doing alterations for people. Maybe you have a rental property somewhere and people can use that now. You can continue to do that. So there may be some things that you can do right now to convert some of your gifts and your talents and your skill sets, that you can convert those to some immediate income. Those are just a few things, a few examples that I would say, for me, that you can think about. What's important in this season is that when we are managing our moods and we're managing our mindsets and we're maximizing our moments, that we need to use this time to truly reconsider, reinvent, renew, reprioritize where we are. Because again, as I said, this disruption has not come to stay, it has come to pass. And when this is all over, what will you have learned from it? And when this is all over, how will you be a better person as a result of it? Again, someone says in the, my accountant shared that there are self-employment retirement plans. Yes, you can do that. If you have SEP IRAs, absolutely. You want to look into those as well. That can reduce your taxable income. Thank you for that. Someone says, yes, be careful with loans, even with interest-free. They're loans, so you're still increasing your debt. Absolutely. But this is about survival. Thank you so much for that comment. You're exactly right. We're talking about survival right now. This is why we have a stimulus and a rescue package, because they know that people have to survive. And if you don't want your business to go under, these are some ways that you can, at least have a stopgap measure in the meantime until you can regrow your business back. But be sensitive, be strategic, and certainly make sure that you can take on what you can handle. Don't get in over your head. Someone says, have a financial product I'm sorry, I've already read that one. Someone else in here says, for those seeking information on the stock market, I recommend that the book that you can use is called Follow the Smart Money by Joan and Peter Najarian. Thank you, Dr. Ricky. I see that in there too. Again, so those are some tips that you can use as well. At the end of the day, I want to encourage all of you, and I want to challenge you to implement some of these tips over the next few days, over the next few weeks, and the next few months. I'm not sure how long we're going to be in this, but right now we're in this thing, and we're in this thing together. We're in the thick of it, and we may not have seen the worst of it, but I'm a big believer that even though we may be in the worst, the best is still yet to come, that there's going to be some good in this, and that we're going to come out of this thing stronger, better, and more resilient. If you have questions, you can certainly type those into the chat room. Also, someone says the Chamber of Commerce conference call for investors. The relief bill includes language to provide loan and grants for sole proprietors. It does provide grants also for independent contractors. So those who may be working for another consulting firm. I know for me, I have some 1099 people working for me. They're independent contractors and consultants. And so for them, they may either be able to file unemployment insurance, or they may be able to get, again, some resources, loans and grants extended to them under this new bill. Also, under certain conditions, the loan will revert to a grant. So it may, again, that's another one. So it may allow for unemployment insurance for those as well. If you are unemployed, file for unemployment insurance, because I also heard that they're going to be providing you your salary up to a couple of months. So the salary that you may have lost, take advantage of it. This is not the time to have pride. This is the time to take advantage of what is available. Someone asked the question, how are you keeping your clients engaged and looking for prospects during all of this? That's a great question. Thank you for that. I'm reaching out to my clients. I've sent them all emails, extending my services, extending my help, my support, my prayers, and letting them know I'm here for them. I'm providing this free webinar. Y'all know I don't do free webinars because I'm a business, right? I got to pay my bills, but this is a service. This is a gift. This is the least that I can do, to just share, to give tips, and to provide some strategies for people who I know could use them, and for people who are hurting. I hope you share this with your teams. I hope you share this with your families. I hope you share this with your colleagues, even your frenemies. Share this with everybody, because we all need to know that we're in this together, and that there are some things that you can do right here during this time. I don't care how bad it looks. There are things that you can do to get through this and to prepare that when you come out on the other side, because there is going to be a rainbow at the end of this rainstorm. There will be a light at the end of this tunnel. There is light in the midst of this darkness. So I just wanted to use my gift to provide some hope. But with my clients, I'm also still reaching out to them, and I've said to them, hey, I can convert everything that we've been doing virtually. I can do, we can do some focus groups if you want to kind of do some check-ins with your staff. I can do that with you as well. We can do that virtually. I can provide some training virtually that you may not have. You may not have a learning management system. I'm ready and up. I've got e-learning. I can do live webinars. I can do a lunch and learn virtually. Come have coffee with me in the morning virtually. So I am extending those kinds of services to our clients as well. I'm providing them resources. I'm sending them research. I'm giving them best practices. I was on the call the other night. They just wanted to know, give me some HR practical tips on what I can do with my remote workers who we've never really worked virtually. How can I help maximize this time? How can I help them to be more productive? What things can I do as a leader to really check in with them? So those are the things that I'm doing with my clients. The other thing I'm doing to keep my business afloat is I'm still creating more content, because I believe that when we get past this, people are going to need more of what I offer, and they're going to need more hope. They're going to need more insight, and they're going to need more coaching, and people are going to want just motivation and inspiration. And I will be that person, and I will be ready. So I'm creating and writing another book on living on the other side of imagination, right? I'm living through that thing right now, but that book is about things that happened to me years ago that got me to my life now, but I need to write another chapter about this thing. So those are things that I'm doing, and I hope that you are maximizing the moment as well. Someone else says, yes, we're in this together. I can't stay for the prayer, but I'm praying with you. Thank you so much. Now, I do want to say to you, for those of you who are on, again, as I said, I respect the fact that all of us have different religious beliefs. I respect the fact that we are all diverse with different backgrounds, different experiences, and different value systems. So allow me to be true to mine, as I'll allow you to be true to yours as well. And so if this time you're not able to stay, or you choose not to pray with me, I am going to spend this last few minutes just praying for our world, praying for your world, praying for your homes, and just praying that, through all of this, that we can make it. I know a lot of times we see these GIFs on social media saying, I'm praying for you, and we see the praying hands, and I don't know how many people really are praying, but I want to be an example, and I want to model my faith. And so I'm going to ask those of you who are still on, if you don't mind, I'd like to have you all join with me. And I'm going to use the name of my God. I invite you to please exercise your own faith. And I ask you to, again, please feel free to use the name of your God, because I recognize that we all do not worship the same way. We don't believe the same way, but we probably all at this time are calling on a higher power, right? I know who mine is. And so again, at the end of the day, we need to exercise our faith, and we do need to pray for our world and believe that better is coming. So if you will right now, allow me to say this prayer, and then I will say goodbye. Almighty God, the one who knows all, the one who is everywhere, the one who is all powerful, we come together right now. We connect together all from around the world to pray this special prayer in unity of heart and in spirit. We ask you to have mercy on our world, on our country, in our communities, and in our homes. We acknowledge that this has shaken us at our core and is far beyond our ability to handle. This is way beyond most of our pay grades. We look to you, God, our higher power. We look to you, our strong tower, our refuge, and our fortress, as an ever-present help in this time of trouble. We ask that you cover our homes, cover our minds, cover our finances, cover our children, cover our health. Cover and grant us, Lord God, in all of this that we're dealing with, grant us strength. Help us to stand up against and stand up with everyone and each person. Stand up against this invisible killer. God, grant us peace, peace that surpasses all understanding. Grant us calm in the face of adversity. Help us to walk in a greater measure of faith and trust in you. Help us to have a greater level of generosity, a greater level of love and acceptance, a greater level of forgiveness and understanding, and yes, even a greater level of patience. God, we ask you in this time to bless our frontline workers. We ask you to touch each and every one of them that are risking their lives, that are working long hours, that are away from their loved ones, all to serve us and to be able to respond to these many needs. Bless our financial situations. Bless our children. Bring peace to our homes. Bless our businesses to recover and allow us to return to a sense of normalcy. But God, help us to emerge with a better mindset, a better attitude. Help us to better maximize these moments and to better position ourselves financially. Reveal to us, God, what is needed to identify a cure for this virus sooner than later. Help us to remember that we all have purpose. Help us to remember that while we're here to make a difference and to make this world a better place. Help us all to do our part to be reflections of your goodness and your love and to help our fellow man any way that we can. May we count our many blessings and not focus so much on what we don't have. Allow us to come out of this global crisis better than ever. And God, we thank you for keeping us through this crisis. We praise you that we can come to you in a time of trouble and that you will keep us, you will deliver us, and you will continue to bless us. This is our prayer. And we all say virtually, thank you and amen. Thank you all so much for being a part of today's webcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I will ask you if you would like a copy of today's webinar. Please reach out to me on social media. Please go to my website, and on the front page, you will see a icon that says Tips for Tackling Tough Times. There is a handout, infographic, and just a recap of all of the highlights and the tips that I've shared with you today. It is downloadable and it is my free gift to you. Today was my time to come to you from my home to yours to say I'm thinking about you. I care about you. I'm standing with you. We're in this together, and that we will get through this and we will be better for this. Thank you again for your time. I'm going to make this recording today available, and I would ask that you would be a part of the solution, and that is sharing this all over the world across your social media sites and letting people know that we've come together and that there are some great things that are going on. Continue to celebrate that all the good things that are going on and be a part of the solution today and not be a part of the problem. Manage your mood and again, think about the positive things that are coming out of this, because we will get through this. I'll see you on the other side of this coronavirus. Take care. God bless you, and God bless America. God bless the United States, and God bless the rest of our world. Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.